Just introduce yourself, your character, and a little bit about your character.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Robert Joseph Miller, equity guest artist here at the Wagon Wheel. I am playing Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof. Tevye is the main character. He is the father. He is a Russian Jew in the late 1800s in a little town called Tevye.
Okay. I was reading somewhere where actually this character was started in 1894 based on some short stories.
Yes, and I have to say I have not read any of those since high school. But in the short stories, the big difference is in the play, in the musical, I have 5 daughters. In the short stories, there are actually 7. So they cut it down for expediency.
That probably is a good thing, yes.
Because I have enough trouble remembering the 5 daughters' names. You know, it's, let me think here now. It's Zeidel, Hadel, Hava, Bielka, and Spritz.
I'll have to look those up to spell them. Now, I understand to prepare for this role, you grew out your beard?
Yes, I stopped trimming the beard at the end of March, although that's what I intentionally stopped, but there's a couple times, you know, if you're used to facial hair, sometimes you're not thinking and you get out the scissors in the morning and it's like, oh, then I'd have to trim it. But I've been growing it, you know, longer and longer since March. The hair I stopped cutting in May? No, would have been April.
Yeah.
So it's, all of it is way out of control as far as I'm concerned.
Which is completely different from when you played Enid Trublad in Hairspray.
Exactly. Is that I was shaving more than I was used to shaving. So one extreme or the other.
Right. Well, speaking of the musical, this musical is, I've seen it before. It's really about tradition and change and are this kind of the themes in the show, or?
Yeah, it is, and you know, it's a great learning experience because he's a devout Jew. That's a very devout community, and it's about a time period when everything was changing for them. So it's, you know, he's a working class father. He's an intelligent man, but he also has a great heart. He has these 5 daughters, and I kind of sympathize with it that I have one child, but it's a daughter, so I get the whole father-daughter thing. Yeah. And he is constantly, his faith is constantly pulled into question by being a parent. It's that, you know, yin-yang thing of the new versus the old. And the song Tradition is about, you know, their traditions, but it gets bigger and bigger, and it's a lot of atonement over the, no pun intended, over the changes that are occurring. Because in the 1890s in Russia was a very tumultuous time for the Jews. I mean, this is when the pogroms were happening. You know, the Jews who had been settled in Russia for centuries are now being ostracated and kicked out. So there's a lot going on.
And this musical is also one of popular. It's like one of the first to hit 3,000 performance on Broadway. I mean,
still, I believe the 10th longest running Broadway show in history.
Okay. Still
in the top 10. You know, if you could, and I believe if you factor in that's if you factor in the revivals. There was just one, 3 years ago, done by a British director. I can't remember his name now, it just escapes me. But it is one of those plays that you know half the music. You just know it. You know these songs. You know tradition. You know If I Were a Rich Man. You know Do You Love Me? All these sweet little songs that are from this show. And it's just, I think, Scott always says this, and I have to agree with him, it is quite possibly the best book for musical theater in an American musical theater history. Is Fiddler on the Roof. It just has a tremendous book for it. I mean, the story is so compelling and so intelligent. It's just a very good show.
Would you say part of that has to do, again, with the theme of tradition versus change? And
yeah, because it applies to our time now. I mean, you can actually find, you know, moments now that it's actually very relevant. And it always does. It's always, you know, it's the cycle of life, is that the old and the new, and, you know, young and old and all that. It's just constant change and turmoil. So I think it applies very well. And I always say I think this is a show that more people connect with, because Tevye is such a base character to everybody's psyche, because he's just a working class father. When you boil it down, he's not portrayed as a dummy or anything. He's actually a very intelligent man, as most working class men are, and he's just trying to do the best he can. And it's what most of us do every day. We get up, we go to work, we do our very best, and that's what it's about. And that's why I think it's such a great story.
Have you ever played this role before? Is this the first time? Is this a role you wanted to play?
I have wanted to play it for quite a long time. It's funny because everybody assumes I've played it before. I've never done it before. You would think as long as I have been the heavy character actor that I would have done it. And I'd always joke that for years here in line at the Wagon Wheel, I got complimented for doing Fiddler. I've never played it. But people have said, I saw you as Tevye, and I go, did you like it? Oh, you were wonderful, thank you. So if they had said I was bad, I would have said, well, I've never done it, so it wasn't me. So now I got to be good to make up for all the compliments I've already gotten.
So, and what, besides going to beer out, what other ways did you prepare for this then?
Just really delving into the history of the time period. I mean, I have an associate's in history, so that was always been a thing of mine. I just love history, and so you get into that somewhat, and it's a lot of it, of course, is about the Jewish culture. So it's just for me, it's just really psychologically getting to that center of the character, which is heart. I mean, he is a beating heart. I know that sounds lame, but that's really how I see Tevye. He's loving, and powerful and funny. I mean, he deals with life with so much humor. And it's something I think there's a great lesson there for all of us, is that he always tries to find humor in the situation. And trust me, in this time period, there weren't a lot of funny things going on, but he finds the humor to continue. It's about being, optimistic and going on. So that's what I try to prepare for.
Okay. Well, the Fiddler on the Roof, the actual Fiddler on the Roof, isn't that kind of a metaphor for survival through joy?
Yes, it is exactly. That's the opening monologue, as he talks about how we are all a fiddler on the roof. And it was a tradition, but not nearly as big as you might think. It was not it did happen, but it wasn't a huge thing in the Jewish faith to do this. But it is such a great allegory for the time period and for survival. And like I said, like many things, it actually applies to us now. It's all about the juggling act of life. And that's what he's talking about, is trying to scratch out a good tune without falling off the roof. So that's the whole point there.
Okay. Now, for the people who may have seen the film version, but not the live version, I guess, can they expect anything like the movie version, or was the movie version?
Yeah, the movie version, I would say, is about 80%.
Okay.
Maybe a little more. I mean, it's very close as most of the music. There's a few changes script-wise, but nothing major, I guess. I'm trying to think of... I think if you see the play version, I always think it's much more visceral to see something, as you well know, in person as opposed to on the screen or on the television at home. There's something about having a living, breathing human being doing it right there before you that connects you in a way that you never get from film. So that's going to be the major difference, I think. And of course, the dancing, Scott has gone with a lot more of the Bible of, what's what we call it, it's called the Bible, of the Jerome Robbins original production, which was based on the actual Jewish dances. So I think that's going to be a big change as well. The ballet and stuff are beautiful.
Wasn't Jerome Robbins wasn't the last one he directed or whatever, Fiddler on the Roof, or?
That's a hard one. I think so, but I can't swear to that.
Okay, I thought I read that somewhere. But
I think it is. I think you're right, but it's like they all run together. I know Zero Mostel played it, and I'm a big Zero Mostel fan. I know he was angry about the movie because the deal was he was supposed to do the film if it was made. And he and Robbins were both supposed to do it, I guess, and they got cheated out of it. So,
Yeah, that's a good reason to be angry.
so he was a little bitter about that. But
Now, the Wagon Wheel stage is only so high. So for the Fiddler on the Roof, how do you do that?
oh, you have to come and see.
Right.
Actually, a local young talent here, Lucas, is playing the fiddler.
Okay.
And he's in a lot of scenes, and there's 2 different areas where he gets up there. He's on the roof, which is, of course, if it was a real roof, you wouldn't be able to see anything.
Right.
So it is I'm trying to think of what's the proper term, a representation, I guess, of a roof.
Yeah.
But it's going to be very cool. The set is gorgeous. Mike Higgins, longtime friend, tech director here forever, designed this, and it's really a neat set. So.
Okay. Who are some of your co-stars you're working with, and the matchmaker, your daughters, and?
I know this is terrible. I don't remember most of the last names because there's so many. I'm in this. We just had a long discussion. I know all the kids by name, and that, but it's like I have to learn their character name and their name. I don't dwell on the last names,
Right.
because I come in the middle of the season, and frankly, I'm getting to the point where memorization is harder.
Right.
So, and they're all like, "Wow, he remembers my name." So I remember your first name because they've been together now. This is their 4th show.
Yeah.
This is my one and only, because Carrie McNulty, a good friend of mine who just did Gypsy, she and I just had this conversation literally yesterday, that's the hardest part of doing this, is you come in and you make these friends real fast, and it's got a good bye. That's what we do here, and that's summer stock.
Yeah.
So, but it's a wonderful cast, many of whom you're going to recognize. Kristen, who's playing my wife, Golda, was in Mary Poppins, and I can't think of the character's name. She was the evil nanny that came
Oh,
back.
yes. Okay.
She's wonderful, and she's hilariously funny in the role, and a great heart. She's just a wonderful actress. The 3 girls you have seen in everything, most recently Rachel, who is playing the oldest, which is Zeidel, was just Gypsy Rose in Gypsy. I'm trying to think of who all's what. And then, of course, locals like Mike Yoakum, and Tim Yoakum is the rabbi. And Matthew is playing Perchek, the school teacher who comes to town from Kiev, the rabble-rouser. Matthew was just Herbie in Gypsy. Trying to think of who everybody is. Hodel is played by Monica. Hava is played by Allison, and I'm sorry, like I said, I don't remember anybody's last names. You're going to have to look that up for you. But they're all wonderful and wonderfully talented. It's the Act 2, we kind of joke, because I call it Tevye wept, because that's when a lot of things go terrible for him as a father. Yeah. And it's very easy for me. I have to hold back, because they are so good at what they do. It's very effective. And for me, just as a person, to watch. So it's got some beautiful moments in it. The weddings and stuff like that are just Scott has really done a wonderful job with the show. So of course he always does. But
right.
I'm really enjoying this one. So.
Okay. Well, you mentioned the songs earlier. Is there a particular number you enjoy the most of all the ones, or do you? I mean, I know some people don't like to pick favorites. But.
I have to say, I love Sunrise Sunset. I love Tradition. A Little Bird is a wonderful song. I've almost named everything, but the one, and it is the money song for the role, is If I Were a Rich Man. It's kind of hard because it goes on a while, and it's just you, and you have to be in it and selling it. But I just love that song. I've always loved the meaning of it, and it is as somebody who, I'm a professional actor, have been for almost 30 years now. Oh my God, I'm so old. But I have always had day jobs, and I have worked at factories, I worked at shops. So there's a wonderful thing about that song, because he's working. It's while he's a dairy farmer, and it's while he's lifting stuff and carrying stuff around. It's the daydream that every working guy has. If I were a rich man, yada yada yada. I love that number, and it's just hands down my favorite or song to do in the show. Yeah,
I was singing it myself this morning when I was looking the show up, and it's like it sticks in your head. And
it's just one of those everybody hums when you walk out. And it's like Sunrise Sunset. How many weddings use that song? Because it's kind of fallen out of vogue now because it's been around so long. But I remember, my gosh, just about every wedding you went to in the 70s and 80s, and I'm sure it was the same way in the 60s when I was too little to remember them, but that song was there. Because it is such a perfect song about, from the parents' perspective of their child growing up and moving on and being married, and it's happy, but it's that melancholy happiness, and it's just beautiful music.
Okay. Last question for you, I guess, is there anything about this show you want people to know, or anything that you did different about this show? Is it the same, or why should people come out, or just?
Well, first off, it is one of the war horses. It's the one that everybody should see. And if you have seen it and it's been a long time, you should see it again. It really is one of those great shows, like in Oklahoma or South Pacific. And the important thing is, this is the first time it's been done here since 1990. This show has not been done here since I started here, and I've been here 23 years. It was done the last time the year before I came. And it is one of those great, Tom Rowland always played Tevye back then, because he did it repeatedly, I believe. But it is one of those great shows that you can see again and again and always enjoy. And if you have seen it in a proscenium theater, that's great. I'm sure you enjoyed it. I've worked at proscenium. But you're going to get a much different feel seeing it here in the round if you're not used to coming to the wheel. You're never more, 11 rows back from center stage. And but in the round, it has a completely different feel because you are in that little village. So that's why I say come see it. It's a great show.
Cool. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.